Hello there, I'm Liam Newberry, and this is the Beacon Film Podcast. Today joining me, we have Jay Simonian and Shane Perry. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Jay.
And it's of my understanding that both of you are rather limited in your horror film knowledge.
Yes, I think I've only seen actually one horror film. It's the original Poltergeist. Haven't even seen the new one, just the original.
Well, that's the only one that's worth watching, so that works out.
Wait, I've seen The Mist. Can we count that as a horror movie?
Not really. As if you have or not gathered yet, we're going to be talking about horror movies today because this is our Halloween episode. It's also our first episode, so maybe that works. I think there's a show that did that. Did Recess do that?
You're asking the wrong person. I've never seen Recess.
What? Recess is an amazing show.
I've never seen Recess. I was deprived of my
No,
childhood.
the first Recess episode is about when they jacked food from the fridge.
Was it probably Scooby-Doo?
Anyway, what?
Was it Scooby-Doo?
Every episode is a Halloween episode for Scooby-Doo.
Not the John Cena one.
So first up, we have the top 5 horror movies. So at number 5, we have John Carpenter's Halloween, making its debut in 1978.
That's the one with Michael Myers, right?
Yes, that was the birth of Michael Myers, the famous serial killer. Actually, the opening scene of Halloween is really famous because it's like a POV shot, and you can tell it's somebody like.
This is Miss Yefko, and they're all in Myra before 10. No, so she should be in 410. Right, but we switched rooms. Oh, okay. I don't know that.
Rip.
Yep.
Pause button for a reason.
It's amazing.
Sorry.
Yep. And the thing about the Halloween opened with a POV shot, and you could tell it's somebody like looking into the house, and you could tell it's like a person, like the way they move, the way it moves, the way it acts. And you're sort of like, oh shit, there's somebody creeping up on this house. There's just like a girl and her boyfriend home. And then, you see the camera like stab him to death. And this is like the opening scene. So it's like, what the hell is going on? So the camera like stabs these people to death. And then it pulls out and it's a kid. It's like a 6 or 7 year old kid. And it's Michael Myers. And so the film revolves around, this like 20 years later, this kid's grown up in a mental institution. He breaks out and he's like stalking teenage girl, and it's actually it's not great for its plot or for its characters. It's really great for its emphasis on strange camera angles. It's really good score, the way it does everything. It's a pretty basic plot and character arc for everybody, but it's really good in the way it presents itself.
I wanted to see it, but I don't watch horror movies because I'm scared of everything.
Come on.
I mostly just wanted to watch it for the score, honestly.
Yeah, it's got a really famous score, but it's it's a pretty much an exemplar of the way horror movies should be presented. So next up, Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs in 1991.
That's about Hannibal, right?
Well,
Hannibal the Cannibal.
You say that. He only appears on screen for, I think, 21 minutes in the entirety of the film.
What?
It's not about him. It's about Jodie Foster's character, Clarice. And she's a psychologist / FBI agent. And she uses Hannibal Lecter, Hannibal the Cannibal's vast intellect to sort of narrow down the person she's actually tracking, a guy named Buffalo Bill, who's actually a transgender guy. His original name is Jane Gum. And he's making a skin suit out of people. He's like murdering people and making a skin suit. It's really, really screwed up. But but everybody remembers Hannibal because Anthony Hopkins gave one of the best acting performances cinema has ever seen. And he's such a well-written and such a well-played character that people remember him more than the actual villain of the movie.
I just remember Hannibal because I'm actually watching the show Hannibal.
Oh, that
on Amazon.
Yeah. Does he do that? I haven't seen that show. Does he do that thing where he goes?
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't do that.
Oh, he does that a lot in the movie. One of the great movie quotes is I've ever heard is like somebody. I don't remember what the exact quote, but it's like somebody tried to survey me once. I ate his liver with a nice side of with some fava beans and a nice side of Chianti.
Nice.
Yeah. So third, William Friedkin's The Exorcist. This movie is horrifying.
The original.
The original Exorcist.
The original.
Yeah, from
Because they remade it.
1973.
They remade it
They
recently.
They remade it, and they also had 2 sequels. The third of which was terrible, but maybe that's just my
believe it.
opinion.
Wait, which one was The Exorcist again? Was that with the girl?
So yeah, that's with the
girl coming out of the
little girl
TV?
named Regan. No, the coming out of the TV is The Ring. The
Oh.
Exorcist is
Shows my knowledge of horror
so
movies.
girl gets possessed by demon. Parents turn to a priest, and the priest kills himself in the process of exorcising her. But
Dude, this sounds awesome.
yeah,
I
but
never
it
saw
works
the
out.
movie, but I read the book.
Yeah,
the
well,
book good?
I haven't read the book actually.
I didn't know they made a
Um,
book for it.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
there was originally a book. It's based off a book. Yeah.
I think so I read it. I want to say 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a minute since I've read it. It was, from what I've seen of the movie, which is not much. It pretty much follows it pretty similarly.
Well, it's a pretty basic plot. You know,
Yeah.
it's like girl gets demon, parents be like, "What the hell?" Literally,
Be like,
literally, what the hell?
Yep.
They go find a priest. Priest comes over, exorcises her, and she kills the priest. The demon kills the priest.
and she's all like,
yeah, but she does get exorcised. He just dies in the process.
yeah.
And I mean, how much more complex can you really get with that?
I mean,
You know?
exorcisms are fairly simple. Not
Fairly
exorcisms themselves.
fairly
I mean,
straightforward
like
process.
the
The idea
Like
Yeah,
the
very-
concept, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a video about a real exorcism. It was somewhere in Germany in the like 70s or something.
Yeah.
And it basically sounded exactly like The Exorcist and the story of it.
Yeah.
Although it was
Except
too-
I'm imagining the person's head didn't spin
well,
really, really
yeah, of
fast,
course.
like 20
she
times.
was just like very malnourished and kind
Yeah.
of messed up.
Well, the horror of this movie doesn't really come from the story. It comes from the like really, really great for the time, not now. Looking back at it, it's kind of gross, but for the time, really, really great special effects. Like
Because it was made in the 70s.
Yeah, you know how Jurassic Park special effects still hold up today? Like
Yeah.
somebody must have sold their soul for those special effects.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but from '73.
Wow.
And it's like
When was Jurassic Park made? Completely
93,
irrelevant.
92. Yeah, it was in the early 90s. And anyway, but in The Exorcist is like, it's like somebody, whew, man, those effects, especially for the time, are terrifying. Like, you know, like she vomits all over the place,
Yeah.
and it's like projectile, but it's realistic looking vomit. It's not like rubber or anything, and which for the time was
Or,
the
like,
usual.
just, like,
usually
corn
it's yeah,
and-
it was rubber and latex based with like, you know, chunky soup mixed in.
Yeah.
And instead, you know, in The Exorcist, somebody put real work into the effects there, and it makes the movie. It really does.
Is it worth watching the original, or
Oh,
can I,
oh, hell
or should
yeah.
I just watch the
Oh,
new
yeah,
one?
no, watch
Have
the
you
original.
seen the new one?
Is there
I haven't
There's a new
seen,
one. They remade The Exorcist like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new one yet.
They
I
also,
don't.
They also remade Poltergeist.
That being
I
said,
know they
remade
remade
horror.
Poltergeist because I saw the commercials for it when I was like up really late and it freaked
I'm
me out.
pretty sure
But-
they remade The
Yeah,
Exorcist.
remade horror movies though usually not really.
I
my
have
bag.
to say though, okay, so this is like kind of off topic because it's not about The Exorcist, but like I've never seen the original Evil Dead. Have you?
Yes.
I never saw
Great
the
movie.
ones from the 80s.
Great
But I
movies.
did see the one that they made in like 2013 or something, and it really almost made me vomit. Like it
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
was,
they
the
can be
gore of
nasty.
it was something else. But,
All right, so number 2 on the list, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This is a great
that-
example of.
Is that the one with Jack Nicholson?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
And the red rum.
Yep, you got Jack Nicholson playing Jack Torrance, Shelley Duvall with Wendy Torrance, and Danny Lloyd as Danny. That group, they're pretty much like the only actors you see for a solid like hour and a half. I mean, there are like brief appearances of minor characters and stuff, but generally that's about it. And you know, you have extras like, and the idea behind it is right. Guy goes to a hotel with his family to get away where he can write because he's an author, and he like. He's invaded by these ghosts, and he goes insane and tries to murder his family.
it's basically cabin fever, like to an extreme because
Yeah.
they're snowed in to this big hotel in Colorado that's literally in the middle of nowhere.
Is it in Colorado?
Yeah, it is in Colorado.
I
It's,
haven't seen Cabin Fever.
No, Cabin Fever's not
I'm
a movie.
talking
It's
about
a psychological phenomenon.
Oh.
it's like this, like they go stir crazy.
Yeah,
basically.
and
like but to an
I'd say the
extreme
movie
degree.
itself
Yeah.
is really well done, just in everything it does. Red rum, you know, the naked ass zombie person in the
Yeah.
bathtub, that was freaky.
Oh,
But to be fair, the whole thing, I was like, yeah, it's pretty, you know, it's kind of scary, but it didn't really get me until there was one scene where Shelley Duvall is running up the stairs away from Jack Nicholson, and she looks over to the right and she sees two ghosts, and it's a guy in a bear suit or a dog suit giving a blowjob to a butler, and it terrified me.
I have to say, I do not recall that scene.
It terrified me.
Like-
That scene was etched in my memory for months. I woke up in the middle of the night sweating holy crap, and I don't know why. It's not an innate.
Does a blowjob scare you that much?
I guess. No, it's 3 seconds long. But it's just, and they just and then they both look up and they look at her, and then she just screams and runs.
But I remember that scene vividly when she's running away from Jack.
Yeah, well, she does that several times, but yes.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but that scene.
That
just,
movie
that got
is
to me.
so well known, mostly for the fact for Red Rum.
Yep, and here's
for
Johnny.
Here's Johnny.
Well,
yeah.
which is funny because he got that from a radio show host. That wasn't his line.
Oh, I read about that.
Yeah, he improvised it based on he was supposed to say her name or something, but instead he said "Here's Johnny" because it was a famous tagline from a radio show host. All right, so here's number one on our list. The best horror movie is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which basically laid the groundwork for contemporary horror films.
Now, did you get this list or did you make it?
No, I made it. This is my subjective opinion. I should have said that at the beginning. This is all my opinion.
I probably should have.
Yeah. But this was in 1960, and this laid the basic groundwork of what horror movies should be. It was, you had Anthony Perkins giving a fantastic performance as Norman Bates as a sort of disillusioned with reality hotel owner who just lost it. And Vera Miles, who, in the movie plays a big twist in the middle where Vera Miles was the main character and then she wasn't at the second half of the film because she was murdered in a shower. And so
Wow.
that whole that twist that sort of plays on your expectations and what actually happens, it really sets up what a horror film should be with little twists leading up to a big one, and then how that affects how you see the rest of the movie. And it does a really good job of that creeping horror that horror movies are so famous for.
I think what really makes a horror movie is not just the special effects, not the plot.
Obviously, yeah.
It's the score and the way they film it.
No, I get it. The score is really important to movies, and I actually have a bit here on that. So, I'd say that, yeah, this is actually pretty scripted, so I'll try and keep it casual. Horror movies are more dependent on their soundtrack than perhaps any other genre of film. They build the tension better than camera work, better than lighting. It's the score that really builds
It's more the
up
fact that you
tension
want a
and-
good score, because if you're looking at a guy murdering this woman, stabbing her to death, you don't want lollipop, lollipop, oh lollipop. No,
that
you
wouldn't
want
be
something
that.
with a lot of bass and
Yeah.
a lot of feeling to it.
Yeah,
A lot of cello.
So the earliest example of horror movie music is Nosferatu in 1922, and that's a silent film. So they had a live orchestra tour with the film reel,
Wow.
or not the orchestra itself. They had people arrange orchestras, and they brought the score with the film reel. People would play it there, and the score was by Hans Erdmann. And I haven't heard it in a while. I should have listened to it before we recorded this. But I do seem to remember that it included a lot of swelling of strings, which, to be fair, is a pretty popular thing in horror music. In fact, Psycho, we were just talking about it, that dween, dween, ding, ding, yeah, that is all violin. And that's the first use I could find of stingers in horror movies. And Alfred Hitchcock didn't want this music for that scene. He just wanted Bates to be stabbing her, but then
The music really made that
the
scene,
music made
though.
the scene, and he had his composer Bernard Herrmann was like, no, we have to have music, and he showed him the scene with music, and Alfred Hitchcock was like, yeah, you're right, we have to,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need music for that, and it became such an iconic piece of horror music that you can't live without it.
I think even if someone just goes their entire life without watching a horror movie, they still know that scene
Exactly,
because
yeah.
of the music.
Because it's so iconic. You can't think about horror without at least remembering that. Yeah. So anyway, the 60s and the 70s sort of took the concept of horror movies and ran with it. Night of the Living Dead, Rosemary's Baby, Jaws, those all came out in the 60s and 70s. And they really revolutionized horror music. We were talking earlier about Halloween, John Carpenter's phenomenal score that he did for that movie. Well, he didn't do, but that his composer did. I'm trying to remember who composed it. Dan Wyman and Peter Bergen, I think. composed it. Peter Bergen did Clueless as well, which was like the epitome of 90s. Like if you ever watch a 90s movie, that's it.
Haven't seen it.
It is.
It's the exact opposite of a horror movie.
Yeah, it really. It's
no, I know what it's about. Isn't it kind of like Mean Girls, but like
kind of
made in the 90s?
Surrounded by like one girl.
Yeah, and also like more 90s.
Yeah.
More 90s. A lot more
yeah.
90s.
Yeah. So
Mean
and
Girls
and
is,
so
like,
you
more
know.
2000s, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to my original point. The 60s and the 70s had a lot of innovation because a lot of small studios were like, horror movies are really popular right now. Let's do that. But smaller studios didn't have the money to like have a great, orchestral like swelling score that all these other movies had. So you had like really, really simple stuff like Jaws. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Yeah, that was made because the guy, the composer for that, who's Jaws' composer?
I don't know.
I'll find it later. But Jaws' composer, he didn't have enough money or he didn't have any band really to score it with, so he just played two complementary notes quicker and quicker, and it became one of the most iconic horror movie bands ever to be
easily
played.
just learn those two notes and boom,
exactly
made Jaws.
And and by the time the 60s and 70s end and studios started like reeling back on the horror movies, I mean, and there were still horror movies, don't get me wrong, The Shining came out in 1980, Nightmare on Elm Street was 1984, and Friday the 13th was also 1980, I believe. So there were movies in the 80s that were like real horror, but it sort of started reeling back in it, and there were no more, like, really, there's no renaissance of innovation in horror music anymore.
We're making horror movies now.
No, we still make horror movies. I'm just saying that
it
was
special effects.
it was a lot
Like,
more popular, yeah.
The horror movies now, like, I've seen a couple recent ones. I've seen Lights Out.
It changed from I think attacking the mind and reality to trying to make you throw up, which is fine. That's one way of doing horror, but the
It's
the
better
style
to do
of
it a
horror has
psychology way. Get into your mind
Yeah.
instead of trying to just.
That's part of the
scare
reason
you.
that Anthony Hopkins was such a big part of Silence of the Lambs, even though he was only on screen for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
like if,
yeah, that was.
if you see Lights Out, I've noticed. I've seen a couple. I've seen Lights Out. I've seen The Visit. Boring horror movies, obviously, but nonetheless, I've noticed that the score is not as good.
Yeah.
The score,
they
it's
don't,
like not even there. It's not
it's
memorable.
fine. You know what it reminds me of? Is like early video games had to rely on very melodic based tunes, and
Yeah.
now it's a lot more atmospheric. And so, it's still great, but it's less like catchy. And so that's the style, the way music styles change reflects in a medium can really be reflective of the time period that the piece is.
Like you really
created
need a good score for a horror movie,
Yeah,
or else
you really
you just don't capture
It's just
it.
not the same.
The atmosphere is just completely dull.
So that's our bit on scores. To wrap up our episode today, I have 5 trivia facts about the original 1990 It, because the new movie just came out.
Oh yeah, I read a fact about it really quick. I don't know
sure.
if it's on your little
Don't
list,
fact.
but he visits the main character. Pennywise visits the main character. I forgot his name. Danny? Dave?
Dan, I think, yeah.
Dan?
Dan.
He visits him every
I don't
27
know.
years. The original movie came out 27 years ago.
Oh yeah, it did, didn't
Yeah.
it? Hey, that's clever.
Yeah.
Go, guys.
I read that. I'm like,
that was chill.
that's
Good job.
interesting.
Yeah. And he doesn't visit the main character, he visits the town, but the same
It's
thing.
the
Yeah.
same thing. He's probably still alive haunting.
So anyway, I just thought going back to the original It, learning all this trivia might enrich in your experience of seeing the new one. I saw the new one; it was amazing. It was not a horror film though; it felt more like a coming of age film to me. But still, it was a great movie.
yeah.
So fact number 1: Tim Curry's portrayal of Pennywise was so terrifying that most people on set avoided him during filmmaking.
I believe that. Tim Curry gets very into his act.
He really does. He's not a method actor per se, but he's
Him and Rocky Horror Picture Show, he gets really into it. He was
he was in that, wasn't he?
He was Dr. Frankenfurter. That's how I remember him.
yeah. He's been in a ton of stuff. So, but yeah, Tim Curry.
His method acting. It's not method acting. Not
But
so much
it's-
as Heath Ledger did, but yeah.
Yeah, and he was so terrifying that people like avoided him on set, which is.
I would believe it.
So it's number 2. When Beverly hears voices coming from the sewers, 2 voices identify themselves as Matthew O'Connor and Vicky Burrows. Matthew O'Connor was the film's supervising producer, and Victoria Burrows was in the casting crew.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, little
It's
Easter
kind of
egg
like
there.
shout out to the people that made it.
Yeah, well, the movies do that a lot. Actually,
Yeah.
pretty much all mediums can do that a lot. They like sneak names in on people who made them.
The creators of Arthur do that a lot.
Do they?
Yeah.
Why do you know that?
I I know a lot of random facts, like the artist of Arthur will put in like his child's name randomly, like in the trees or like
fun.
on a poster board.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
so cool.
All right, so number 3. Michael Cole was so absorbed in his role that in the scene where he tries to kill Mikey, it was hard for John Ritter and Dennis Christopher to pull him off of Tim Ryan. Like in the scene, like, so he got so into like trying to pretend to kill this dude that he got like really into it, and they had to try and pull him off, and it was harder for them for it. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That I don't. Remind me.
Did they
never
only
to
do
work with
that
Michael
sign? Like, did they only do that scene once? Because you
They
can
must
imagine.
have. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking multiple takes of that scene must have been pretty hard for Tim Ryan. I imagine.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just one scene, just one take.
Yep.
You screw it up. You screw it up, man.
Well, there were multiple scenes. Bonus fact: there's a scene where there's like stuff flying around the set, and they had to do it once because they ruined the set by making all this stuff fly around
Yeah.
it. So they could only take it in one take, and they got it. But
They
it
do
was,
that a lot with like action movies.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
you
but
can
that's that's like a standard thing that action movie makers are used to. These are all people who like are in like Tim Ride, for example, like Tim Curry, Tim Ride. Those people are not used to being in action movies.
No, they're not. No.
All right, so number 4. The gray scene in adult Mike's hair was done by brushing his hair with a toothbrush covered in baby powder. So no complex hair dyes, nothing like
I
special. They just took a
Baby
toothbrush.
powder is good for your hair too.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'll have to try it.
Gets out all the oils and everything. All the
Well, I mean,
unwanted
hair is
oils.
covered in natural oils for a reason.
No,
but-
but like it gets rid of the
like,
unwanted ones.
Unwanted oils. Yeah, nothing special though. He just took a toothbrush and baby powder. Just took a toothbrush and baby powder and just.
Why do you use a toothbrush? Why not like a regular hairbrush?
I don't know. Ask the makeup artist.
Finer.
That too.
You can
yeah,
get the
it's-
little
it's finer
little hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last fact, you'll love this one. Alice Cooper was considered for the role of Pennywise.
What?
Oh
I
man.
feel like he couldn't have done it justice though.
Maybe, but I'm picturing like Pennywise shredding a guitar. And
Because it's Alice Cooper.
yeah. But anyway, so that was our horror movie episode. Keep tuning in for other episodes that we'll be releasing sometime in the next couple
We'll
of
do
weeks.
seasonal episodes. Can we
We'll
do
have to,
one
yeah.
about a Christmas? About how
We'll
the
have
Grinch
to.
stole Christmas?
We'll have to.
how-
But anyway, that's us for now. So this has been Liam Newberry, Jay Simonian, and Shane Perry. Thank you for listening.